الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Okay, today we're going to be talking about wiping on a band-aid or a cast or something like this. In the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they used to use like palm tree leaves, and they would wrap up the wounds or broken bones and stuff like this. Using qiyas, we now use band-aids and casts, and it takes the same ruling as what they used to do at the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And just to be clear, you can wipe on these things out of necessity during ghusul and during wudu both, as long as you only cover what is necessary for you to cover and you do not exceed more than that. Okay, as long as you cover what is necessary for you to cover. Here, I'll give examples, right? What if you have one finger that is broken, but the doctor tells you, okay, in order for this finger to heal, you have to wrap up the finger beside it also, these two fingers. Okay? Can you wipe on this, and does your wudu still count? Yes. Because even though the other finger was not necessary for was not broken necessarily, but was necessary for you to cover. What if the doctor says, okay, yeah, you broke one finger, you technically need to wrap both of them for one finger to heal, but just in case, let's wrap up your whole arm. Let's put a cast on your whole arm. Can you wipe on that? No. Because now you exceeded more than you needed. You're not allowed to wipe on this. Okay, but now let's get into practical life. Okay, what if the doctor put a cast on your whole arm even though you didn't need it, and now you can't wipe upon it during wudu? What do? You're not a doctor. You can't just like take the cast off yourself. So what you do practically? You make tayammum, because you can no longer wash the part that you need to wash. And this works for even if it's ghusul or not, even if it's hadith al-asghar or hadith al-akbar. Okay. And now we get to a mas'ala. What if you have an open cut? Like say right now, I have a big open cut on my arm right here, and I didn't put a band-aid or anything. And the thing about it is I'm not able to wash it. So what do? I can't wash it, so I can't make the wudu. I can't wipe upon it. There is no band-aid or anything. What do? At this point, I also make tayammum, because I'm not able to wash the parts that I need to wash for my wudu to count. Okay. You guys know, of course, from the previous lessons, that on the imama, on the khuf, on the jawrab, on the jurmuq, on the khimar, you have a time limit of 1 day and 1 night to wipe upon it. Then you have to take these things off. Okay? Or if you're traveling 3 days and 3 nights, then you have to take them off. What about for band-aids? Band-aids are different because you do not have a time limit. Your limit is actually until it heals. Once you're healed, you keep it on. This is not allowed. You can't wipe upon it. Your wudu won't count, or your ghusl. But if it's just until you heal, that's it. It's not a day and a night or 3 days and 3 nights. None of that. Now we'll talk about traveler. What do we mean by traveler? Traveler is if you travel 47 Hashimi miles, which is about 88 kilometers nowadays. Okay. Now we go to something with a clear difference of opinion, because most of the things I've said, there's not much difference of opinion. The madhab says, if you didn't have wudu before you put on the band-aid, then you cannot simply wipe on the band-aid. You have to make tayammum instead. Other scholars, including scholars from the madhab itself, okay, like Shaykh Uthaymeen and Ibn Qudama, said you don't have to have wudu before putting on the band-aid or the cast, because It says out of necessity, and you wouldn't know like, oh my God, wait, I'm about to break my arm. Let me make wudu. Um, but they all agree. There's ijma' upon this also, that if you could make wudu before you put on the band-aid or the cast, and you're able to make the wudu before putting on the band-aid or the cast without harming yourself, then you have to do it. And if you don't, then the wiping won't count. Okay. Okay. Now there's 4 differences that we can mention about the differences between a band-aid and all the other things like the khuf and the jawrab and the khimar and the imama and the jurmuq. What are the 4 differences? One, the band-aid you can use for ghusul. Okay, like you could also wipe on the band-aid during ghusl or the cast. But the other things like the imama and the khimar and all these other things, you only wipe on them for wudu. Other than that, you take them off for ghusl and you wash yourself. Also the time limit for the other ones, just like we mentioned earlier, 1 day and 1 night or 3 days and 3 nights for the traveler. But for the band-aid or the cast, it's unlimited until you're healed, inshallah. What about the third thing? Wiping on the band-aid is wajib. It's mandatory. The other things, it's not mandatory. If you want, you could just take them off. Number 4, you wipe all over the band-aid, unlike the others where you don't wipe all over. Okay? Meaning, remember how on the sock, you wipe only on top of the sock. On the imama, you only wipe on the part where it covers your head, right, on top. Same thing with the khuf, and same thing for the khimar. Okay, but what about the band-aid? You wipe all over. What's the proof? First of all, let's get into some proofs that you can even wipe on the band-aid or all these things. There was a sahabi. Okay, so this is the proof that I'm talking about. There was a sahabi, and he was hurt. And he went to other sahabas, but these other sahabas, yes, they had this taqwa, but they were not sahabas that were known to be grounded in knowledge. Okay, they were not like the known to be knowledgeable sahabas. And he told them, I have a cut. Okay, I have cuts on myself. Should I make ghusl or should I not? Those other sahabas did not have lots of knowledge, like I said, and they told him, of course, it's wajib to make ghusl. You have to make ghusl. So he made ghusl, then he died from it. Infection and all these things. So once the news reached Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said they killed him. May Allah kill them. Then he said, if they didn't know, couldn't they just ask? Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that they could have that the person that was cut could have just wiped on it. The thing about this one is the way he said wiped on it makes it clear that it's not just wipe on top. He says he could have just wiped it, sorry. And the way he said he could have just wiped it, this makes it clear that it's not just wiped on top. Okay? It's wiped the whole thing. Okay. Now let's get into some case scenarios. Okay, like about the imama and the socks and all these things from earlier. Okay, this is not technically all about the band-aid. Let's get in some case scenarios now. What if you leave London right now, where we live in London, Ontario? What if you leave London, then you go to Toronto? It's more than 88 kilometers away. You broke your fast, then you wiped on the imama, or you wiped on the sock or whatever, right? Then within the same day, you come back to London. You still have the same sock on or the same imama on that you left London 88 kilometers and came back. Okay, you wiped on the sock when you left. Then you came back now. Do you wipe like the resident 1 day and 1 night, or do you wipe like the traveler 3 days and 3 nights? You wipe like the residents. Okay. Uh, okay, now second case scenario. If you're a resident and you broke your wudu in London, then you wiped on the sock in London, then you left London and you went to Toronto. Now, do you wipe like the resident 1 day and 1 night, or do you wipe like the traveler 3 days and 3 nights? The scholars say you wipe like the resident. And why? Is because, first of all, just like we established a long time ago, you wipe 1 day and 1 night if you're a resident. But when does the time start? Is after the first wipe, after the first time you use the exception or the rukhsa. It doesn't start as soon as you put on the sock. Okay? So they say the first time you wiped and the time started ticking was when you were a resident before you left London and went to Toronto. So because of that, you still wipe 1 day and 1 night like the resident, because that's when the time started. The time started as when you were a resident, not when you were a traveler. Okay. What if you're not sure, like the same case as number 2, but you're not sure if you wiped on the sock, even though you broke your wudu in London, you're not sure if you wiped on the sock when you were in London, before you left London, or after you left London. You're not sure which time you wiped on the sock. The scholars say you wipe like the resident because اليقين لا يزيل بالشك, meaning the certainty does not get removed with doubt. Okay? Number 4. If you broke your wudu in London, but the first time you wiped on the jawrab or on the imam or whatever was when you were a traveler, do you wipe like the resident or you wipe like the traveler? They say you wipe like a traveler because the time started ticking and you used the rukhsa for the first time while you are a traveler. So the time counts as if you're a traveler. You wipe 3 days and 3 nights. And then, just to be clear, you do not wipe on the hats. You wipe on the imama. Okay? Okay. What if you wore a khuf? Okay? On top, you wore a sock on top of another sock, top of another khuf, in a state of tahara. So you made wudu, then you wore a sock, then you wore a second sock on top of that. Okay? The ruling is for the sock that is on top, the top sock, meaning that's what you wipe upon. You can't take off the top sock, then wipe on the bottom sock. You wipe on the top sock. Okay? But if you wore, say you made wudu, then you wore one sock, then you broke your wudu, then you wiped on the first sock, then you put on a second sock on top of that. Can you wipe on the top sock, the second sock? No, you cannot. You wipe on the bottom sock. Okay, and this is because the second sock, you didn't put it on in a state of normal tahara, you put it on in a state of an exception, of a rukhsa. Okay. What if you're making wudu? Okay. Then you wash, in the middle of your wudu, you wash the right foot, because that's the foot you should wash first. What's mustahab for you to do? You wash the right foot, then you put on the sock, then you wash the left foot, then you put on the second sock. Okay? Can you now, after you broke your wudu, can you wipe on the socks? No, you cannot. What's the proof? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm sure you guys remember the hadith from earlier, the older lessons, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a Sahabi that went to take off his khuf for him because he was in the middle of making a wudu, and a Sahabi wanted to help him by taking off the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's socks. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Da'huma, leave them, for verily I put them on in a state of tahara." Meaning, if you put the socks on in a state of tahara, that's when you can wipe them. But the thing about this case, about washing the right foot, then putting on the sock, then washing the left foot, then putting on the sock, the second left sock, the problem with that is when you put on the sock on the right foot, you are still not in a state of tahara, because you still haven't finished your wudu. So because of that, how are you gonna wipe on socks that you did not put on a state of tahara? So you gotta watch out. Okay. Okay. Just like we said earlier, on the imama, you wipe on what's on the head. You don't wipe on the whole tail and everything, right? Unless a part of the head is exposed, then you wipe on the part of the head that's exposed, then you wipe on the imama. Okay, and even if you have a part of the head exposed in the back, you wipe on the part of the head that's exposed in the front. You wipe on the imama, then you wipe on the part that's exposed in the back. There's no problem. Okay? What about the khuf or the jawrab? You wipe on the top of the foot, starting from the toes. I'm going to show you right here. Starting from the toes all the way to the ankle. That's how you wipe on top of the foot. You don't wipe on the bottom. You don't wipe on any of them. What's the proof? Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu said, if this religion was based upon opinion and ra'i, then we would wipe on the bottom of the khuf. But I saw the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wiping on top of the khuf, so we wipe on top of the khuf. I saw the Prophet Muhammad said if the religion was about your opinion, then we would have wiped on the bottom of the khuf. Why? Because that's what gets dirty, right? But I saw the Prophet wiping on top of the khuf, so we wipe on top of the khuf. Radiallahu anhu. And this was recorded in Musnad Imam Ahmad and graded to be authentic by Shaykh Al-Bani. No doubt about it, it's an authentic hadith. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say. The hadith about the Sahabi that died after watching and making this ghusul, this hadith was Hasan, meaning reliable, and we still use it. Okay. What if you made the wudu? We're going to keep going through scenarios to get to understand this very well. What if you made the wudu, you put on a khuf, then you lost your wudu, okay, then you wiped on the khuf, then the time expired after that, meaning the time expired of 1 day and 1 night or 3 days and 3 nights, but that's after you wiped on the khuf. There's no problem, right? Is your wudu still valid or not? Okay. Is your wudu still valid, but you just can't wipe on the khuf anymore, on the sock anymore? Or is your wudu no longer valid, okay, at all, and you have to actually make a whole new wudu? Or your wudu is no longer valid unless you wash your feet. So this is 3 opinions. The madhab, the Hanbali madhab, says your wudu is no longer valid at all. The time expired, you have to take off the sock and you have to make a whole new wudu. Okay. Lots of scholars, including scholars from the Hanbali madhab itself, they disagreed, like Shaykh Uthaymeen again, saying this is not from the invalidators of wudu. This is not from nawaqid al-wudu. Okay. If you take the opinion of Shaykh Uthaymeen, not the opinion of the madhab, then this gives birth to a second question, which is, what if you made wudu, then you put on the khuf, you put on the sock, then you lost your wudu, then you wiped on the khuf, you wiped on the sock, then you took off the khuf. Okay, even if the time didn't expire, you wiped on the sock, then you took it off. Okay, is your wudu still valid or not? Okay. The Hanbali madhab says your wudu is no longer valid. Okay. Shaykh Uthaymeen said your wudu is still valid. Okay. But this gives birth to a third question. What if you put on a khuf, you lost your wudu, you wiped on the khuf, okay, then you took it off, then you put it back on. The Hanbali madhab again says your wudu is no longer valid, but Shaykh Uthaymeen says your wudu is still valid, but you can no longer wipe on the khuf because you didn't put on the khuf in a state of true tahara, you put it on in a state of rukhsa, of an exception. Okay. Now I'll give you the opinion of Shaykh Uthaymeen for all of these, okay, and his reasoning. Why does the madhab say if you take off the sock, even if you wiped upon it, then your wudu is no longer valid, or if the time expired, your wudu is no longer valid? What is their proof? Their proof, they say, if you're given a rukhsa and the sabab completes, the sabab of the rukhsa completes, then your wudu is now invalid. then their proof is they made qiyas upon tayammum. Because you know how by ijma', this is the proof that I'm going to give for now. There's ijma' that if you made tayammum, that means you had no water, then you made tayammum, which is like slapping your hand on the sand, wiping on here, slapping it again, wiping on here. If you have no water, then you made tayammum because you need to make wudu or you need to make ghusul and you have no other option, so you made tayammum. Then you started walking to the masjid or something like that. Then you ran into water, you saw water. Now your tayammum no longer counts because your tayammum was just an exception. It was just a rukhsa. Okay, they say just like that, you wiped on the sock, but then you took it off. That means your wudu no longer counts. Okay? Because this was just a rukhsa and your rukhsa completed. I'm not saying which opinion I take because honestly they're both not like very strong in proof or anything. But I'm gonna say that the opinion of the madhab is definitely safer. Okay, just make another wudu, it's safer if you can. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. This is the lesson for today, inshallah.